Here he is, Big Dev, Big Dev, Big Dev. How are you, sir?
Hello, hello, Dave. Nice to see you, mate. How are you?
I'm not too bad. I'm not too bad. We've been locked in for virtually a year, nearly a year now. What have
Indeed,
you been
I've
doing?
never. Yes, I know.
What have you been doing? What have you been doing
It's
to
a,
keep busy?
well, I mean, most things you do during this lockdown is try and keep up to you. Obviously, we do quite a bit of work together during the summer. Some of the things I do, and what you do with the lockdown is just try and keep as much as possible, keep in touch with your clients. Although we can't meet up face to face, you still got to send in emails, making phone calls, just checking up how guys are doing, various companies are doing, and keep your clients kind of still a little bit enthusiastic to let them know that look, we're still here waiting, we're ready to roll, and as soon as things are a lot more safer to move around, we can link up again. But the feedback you're getting, just keeping in touch with all these different guys, is they're really gagging. They can't wait to get back out again to socialize, to
Well, that's it.
kind
I
of.
mean, you work extensively in the events industry with like your personal appearances, and you do like a lot of speaking engagements, and of course with cricket days, a lot of corporate work you do. But I always love talking to you. I have loved talking to you through this year because you're really confident it's really going to come back with a massive boom for the events industry, aren't you, Dev?
Yes, yes. As I said, I mean, as you mentioned, I've got quite a lot of events that constantly being postponed, pushed back, and people are still keen to have these events. But the more things lock down, and as I said, the appetite is still there. You understand? People just looking forward, said, "Oh boy, I just can't wait to get up back to a game of cricket. Can't wait to turn up to a lunch or a dinner and various different things." So, what I gather from just talking to a lot of the companies or people who we normally see frequent these events, they are extremely still very keen. I mean, they feel like as if once we get back out there and get to go ahead and we get on top of this COVID to a certain extent, it will be almost like a stampede. We're going to be very busy, and as I said, all the various bookings and other things you just got to keep, as I said, keep pushing back and keep talking to people and keep rebooking dates. You understand? So,
Yeah.
I'm still very hopeful. The events industry that we are in, hit the worst at the moment, but
Mm.
I do feel, I found out that, over the lockdown, that's a massive part of people's psyche, going to work, having a good time, or turning to events. You don't realize how much this is part of society. It's not just, it's a huge industry, the events industry, and, just hoping that we get on top of this and
Yeah.
get out there again very quickly, mate.
I know. Well, I feel we're getting closer. Just seeing you there in your new Lashings top makes me just feel we're getting a little bit closer. And I'll tell you what, when we can all get back together again, I won't take it for granted. Not that I did take it for granted, but even more so, we just can't take it for granted the fact that we can get together and work together and do all of these great things and raise some great money for the
Yeah.
charities at the same time. So, just moving on then. I mean, you growing up, just touching on your life and then your career, but you grew up in your early years in Jamaica, I believe. So, with that in mind, I guess your heroes would have been some of the great West Indies players, the great West Indies fast bowlers.
Yes, you know, um, growing up in the Caribbean, as you said, born in Jamaica, grew up in Jamaica. Whatever sport is going, you normally support that, whether it's football, cricket, athletics, you're always a part of that. But I found out some of my great heroes in cricket, especially at boyhood. Hero of mine, Michael Holding, although I didn't know what the man looked like and everything. I learned most
Mm.
of my cricket just listening on the radio, hear commentators like talking and giving commentary, and they normally describe this youngster running from the boundary, the speed of light, and bowling the speed, bowling very quickly, and that's what I
Yeah.
tried to do. So a lot of the West Indies boys said coming up in the 70s, 80s, Michael Holding, Viv Richards, Colin Croft, Victoria Garner, and all those guys, absolute heroes, and batches as well. The great Sir Viv Richards, and even coming down to later on, guys like Brian Lara, and Richard Richardson and all those guys. The West Indies team was just a fantastic um, cricket team, a fantastic team. In you put it across in any sport, whether it's football, cricket, basketball, whatever. They always, if you're going to put them on a world stage, they would be always up there as one of the best teams in the world. And as I said, the love for cricket developed from the domination, really, of world cricket and the amount of talent. I mean, those guys used to possess.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, I mean, starting from the mid 1970s and Clive Lloyd and that team, they really did transform cricket. But you moved over to England, I think, when you were 16, 17, was it?
16 years.
16 years old.
15, yeah. Yeah, 15. Yeah.
And continued your cricket. And the fabulous story, you first came to prominence in the media, the local media, when you were playing a second 11 game, was it, for Yorkshire,
Yeah,
and got out a certain
what,
opening batsman.
I must just clear a little bit up first, because I came here to join my dad. Sadly, I lost him. My dad passed away earlier on in the year.
Yeah, we're very sorry about
one
that.
of the first in the batch of COVID deaths in a care home. But I came to join him as a youngster, and I didn't play cricket for some 3 years. I was here as a student, and it just happened that I started playing cricket again. For my college. I was at Richmond College in Sheffield, and just started picking up cricket, and I was still pretty good at it. I had a very strong arm. I could bowl very quickly. But just to push the story on quite a bit, I was playing for Sheffield United. I got selected to play in the Sheffield United team. They used to play in the Yorkshire League, and I was selected in the Yorkshire League 11 in March 1984 to play against Yorkshire County Cricket Club in a pre-season game. The League 11, Yorkshire League 11, always play Yorkshire in March in a pre-season game. And as it happens, I had my first game in March for the League 11, the Yorkshire League 11 versus the county side at a place called Castleford in Yorkshire. Pretty nervous. Never played against first-class cricketers before. Opening the batting for Yorkshire was Martin Moxon and the great Jeff Boycott. My first over cleaned up Martin Moxon with a Yorker, because I realized then, okay, March, you ain't gonna hit anybody on the head. You gotta pitch the ball up. So I was still pretty quick during the air, and I clean up Moxon first over. Second over, the same fate happened to Mr. Boycott. His bat was just halfway down when his stump was rocked back. Clean bowled him, and you know what?
I expect he really enjoyed that, Dev, didn't he?
I absolutely love it up to this day. A matter of fact, to be honest, although I had a bit of talent, but you got to be very lucky as well when you're playing sport at the right place at the right time. Got a great batsman out, clean bowled him. You see, it wasn't a fluke, and that was on the Friday, and should be back at college on the Monday. But the coach, had a write-up in the Yorkshire Post. And I must just add as well, that particular game is the first time and the only time the League 11 ever beat the county side. And we did that in 1984. So the coach at Derbyshire saw it in the write-up in the Yorkshire Post and invited me up to Derby on the Monday. And I told him I couldn't, turn up for training because I already nicked the Friday off college to go and play in the League 11. And he said, look, just get the train and come to Derby for a trial. And he recognized I had a bit of pace. And he said, look, I'm going to offer you a 1-year contract and see how we go from there. And the rest is history, really. So, I mean, if you look at my career and what I've achieved, you ask Boycott, and he'll tell you that, Dev, if it wasn't for my wicket in 1984, nobody would know you, mate. So, Boyce was a seriously good batsman, and getting a great batsman out, and it was just a launching pad, as I said, for me getting into first-class cricket. Otherwise, I would just continue do my studies and continue what I was doing. But I absolutely loved cricket.
It's amazing though, like you said, to have early cricket in Jamaica, but then have 3 years not playing at all and coming back into it, and not a great deal of time later signing for Derbyshire. But with Derbyshire, who were your who were the main characters in the dressing room at the time? Did you have any kind of main mentors in that squad?
I mean, in this side, because I said, getting into a county side, and normally watch quite a bit of cricket on the TV on BBC then, and you see guys like Jeff Miller, who used to play for England, and Bob Taylor, absolute heroes. So when I turn up at Derbyshire and see guys like Test cricketers, meet a Test cricketer for the first time in real life, it was rather mind blowing. Speaking to Jeff Miller and Bob Taylor and stuff like that. And we had quite a few young players in the team, coming through. And as at the time as well, when I joined Derby, Michael Holding was the overseas player there. But again, luck was on my way. Michael Holding missed out in 1984 because he had a new injury. That's one of the reasons, because at that stage I was still classing on overseas. So that's
right. Okay. Wow. Okay.
So you just look at the whole thing, and all of a sudden they're a young guy from Jamaica, never met Michael Holding, and guess what? You're gonna deputize, never play first class cricket, but you're gonna be literally deputizing as an overseas player for the great Michael Holding. But in those days, is when the counties normally have two overseas players. They had John Wright as well, so we're just gonna rotate, have a few games and see how it goes. And unbelievable. If you look at the whole thing, when I, just get the opportunity to play for Derbyshire, the overseas player here is Michael Holding. He's going to come back next season. You're going to meet the man for the first time and probably have quite a bit of coaching and a few tips from him as well. I keep saying, no, this is a dream. Wake me up, And, there's lots of guys there. You play with the guys, another guy there called Paul Newman, Roger Finney, and all those various different guys.
Was it just that first season there that you were classed as an overseas player, or how did that work?
So I classed as an overseas player, mainly because, again, although we're living here for all that time, and my dad been living in England from the 60s. So as a sports person, I was classed as an overseas player, and the waiting period then was obviously because I was here as a student, as an overseas player, not here to play cricket. You'd probably wait 10 years, not like now, where obviously the rules changed, like Jafra could get in after 3 or 4 years. My qualification period was 10 years before I could play for England. You understand? But again, because I was living here and all that time, a student and all that, so the rule was changed. So it took me 7 years to qualify to play for England. So.
Okay, and moving on then. So your England debut was against Australia.
Oh, please don't remind me of that.
So was it third test against Australia? And at that time, we'd won the Ashes, I think, out in Australia, 86, 87. 86, 87. Then they had sort of 2 years of really getting their act together, came over to England and won magnificently, Alan Border's side against England. But you made your debut there in the third test, but then moving on to a fabulous tour back out to the West Indies.
Yes, but you know what? When I look back on my career, and you keep saying, okay, one of the proudest moments, to be honest, I mean, you mentioned about that debut against Australia. Yes, it was tough. Yes, it was hard. Australia was just unbelievable. They changed their strategy of their game, and they moved their the bar massively above most test playing nation, especially England. They really had their acts together, and they act together very good. And when I came in the side in '89, I probably was the fourth test match or fifth test match at Trentbridge. They were already 3-0 up, I believe it was. And say no more. Came in for my debut. I had when you look at it at the end of the test match, it was a rather tough introduction to test cricket. But I had a little thing in my head anyway. I reckon the third over, I could have had a wicket LB. You look back in the replay, and I literally beat Marsh totally for pace. Could have been LB, but at the end of the day, Australia walking off the field with the scoreboard looking at 301 without loss, and it was, it was rather soul destroying. And say no more, we went on, we lost that test match by a heavy margin. And Dex, keeping my fingers crossed, thinking probably that was my only test match my only test game. And Next day, announced the side to tour the West Indies, 89-90 trip. And obviously, you recognize they knew I could bowl quickly. And I was naming the side for the West Indies.
Did
So,
you get? Did you have an inkling that you would have been named in the side, or was just nothing said
well,
after that last Test match, or how does that work?
no, but I mean, cricket is not like what it is now. There's a massive communication plan open, and people
Mm,
probably sit you down and say, look, okay, you know, you need to work on this and this. We reckon you have a future in the game. It wasn't like that in the 80s, mate. It was, you're in one game, you're out, you know.
mm,
Plenty of guys who come in and play one Test match, never been seen again, you know. And the
mm.
debut I had, you know, it could have been my only Test match if you were just going to look on the analysis alone. Yes, I had the potential, and I was pretty raw, just coming straight from Derbyshire, thrown into the deep end. And I mentioned a little bit as well about that game where I made my debut. There was guys like Angus Fraser, Michael Atherton, Martin Moxon, quite a few, Tim Curtis. There was quite a few debutants in that side. So you probably shouldn't be too
Too
worried,
harsh. Yeah.
too harsh on the beating we
Yeah.
had anyway, mainly because a
Mm.
lot of the senior players actually at that period, 1989, decided to go to South Africa
The
and the
Rebel
Rebel
Tour. Yeah.
Tour. So all the
Yeah.
guys were throwing the deep end, and we had to paddle real hard to get through. But, you know, push it back to what I was talking about, getting back into the West Indies now. As I said, we had a massive preparation. I mean, David Gower was my captain against Australia at Trent Bridge when I made my debut. He was left out of the side because Graham Gooch took over as manager, as captain,
As captain, yeah.
for the team, and he just wanted to change the whole strategy. He said, okay, we've got some young players here. You guys probably don't really know how tough it is to play Test cricket. And goodly as well, we had quite a few months of preparation. So I set up training camps all over the country, and writers get some good fitness program written out for us, fitness program and also skills program. So we had
How different was it to what you were used to in terms of game preparation, in terms of what Graham Gooch and his team around him brought to the table for pre-game management?
totally different, really, mainly because, as I said, I was young, I was fit, I didn't have to train as hard, I would just go on my fitness, you understand?
Mm.
But what I did find out, I'm even playing in that game in Australia, or even playing county cricket prior to that, you believe you're fit, yes, you're running your ball all day, but you don't realize you're not as fit because there's a lot more mistakes come in when you're not as fit. So you were playing and you keep saying, okay, I bowl some good balls, but at the end of the day, I don't take much cricket. But the preparation we had, you know, and fitness and the mental strength and everything else, we did before we got to the West Indies. Yes, if you look on the England side, we're still very young and inexperienced, the amount of caps the West Indies had.
Mm.
And the caps we have, or we were virtually, apart from a few of the senior guys, Graham Gooch, Alan Lamb, the younger boys didn't play much Test cricket. But we realized the amount of fitness and the training we went through, Graham Gooch and Mickey Stewart put us through before we went out. We said, look, you know what, we're probably not the brilliant of cricketers as the West Indies, but we can be on the stage regarding fitness and backing our ability. So we actually surprised West Indies massively in the first Test match in Jamaica, mainly because we said, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, sorry.
Mainly because we thought in our mind, and the strength that Graham Gooch and his team put in us to say, look, guys, we do all our preparation. You know what? We can stay on the field with these boys all day. We are as fit as they are, you know. Potentially we can bowl as quickly or we can bat. We can play them. There are some big name players, but, you know, we can surprise them here. And, you know, I mean, the bigger you set the stage for me, the better I feel anyway. And, you know, I knew that was part of this team, part of the squad. I was told earlier on by Mickey and Graham, when Ricky Elcock, obviously another tourist, he was on the trip, very quick bowler. He was pulled out of it because of you know, of a back injury. And I was told I was going to be leading the pace attack. And lovely as well, I had Angus Fraser, who would be opening the bowling with me. He was, you know, a steady line and length bowler.
Mm.
My job was to, you know, ball on all 6 cylinders. I just got to bowl as quickly as I can. Strike, take wickets. Angus' job was to hold it at one end, go for 2 and over. And if I go up for 4 and over and strike at a good rate, we'll both sides out. But my plan was to shake the batsman up, whether it's with Richard, Greenwich, Haynes, whatever. My job, or Carl Hooper or Richard Richardson, Carlisle Best, name a few of the West Indies players those times. My job was to get in there and bowl in short spell, but my job was to bowl at pace and try and bowl as many wicket-taking balls as possible. And, the thing about it is this, you probably look at my figures and you said, okay, I've gone for probably 60 or 70, but a lot of the balls I bowled, I have to try and bowl wicket-taking balls. I wasn't there just to let the batsman leave the ball outside the off stump. My job with the new ball to let the batsman play as much as possible. And the more they play, the more chances they're going to take runs off me, but the more chances I'm going to be striking at a good rate, So that was the plan I had to work to. And it did work very well in that game, because my job was to, as you said, early out the batsman, or every time I come on, it was try and take wickets. I've had specific instructions that work well. And when it works well, when you're taking wickets, it's fantastic. But at times, I must admit, when you don't take wickets and the plan don't go, all the burden's on you. It's your fault, you understand? But lucky enough that game in Jamaica worked well. And, I mentioned Boycott earlier on, who launched in my first class career. That game in Jamaica, getting Viv Richards out in the first innings and the second innings especially, that really launched my test career, because, need to say, look back on the records on my debut, it was rather, it wasn't one of the best debuts. But after that test match, the first test match in that series in Jamaica, contributed quite a bit towards winning that game. Starting from the run out, getting Gordon Greenwich out, run out, and getting Viv Richards out in both innings. And Angus Fraser bowled well in the first inning as well. Alan Lamb batted well, and it was a full team contribution, and we won that game. And all of a sudden, for the first time in, I believe, 35 years, England, we won a test match in Jamaica,
But how did you feel, as you say, a young man, very early in your international career? Were you always supremely confident you've got to contend with the crowd as well? They know that you're homegrown from Jamaica as well. You've just got out the great Viv Richards a couple of times. What were your confidence levels like at that time? How did you deal with those situations?
Well, I tell you what, it was. I've seen players after my career absolutely froze stiff, in situation like that. And, when I played, I wasn't one of the best fielders in the world. I've got a strong arm and all that business. And as a fast bowler, you normally field in the deep, so you're closer to the crowd. And, I understand all the lingers and all the long ridge, from the crowd. And the crowd were vociferous. They gave me so much hassle. Running them both to Viv Richards, that is daunting. But finish your over and heading back to third man, fine like mate. I promise you, it was twice as bad. They could break you easily. It was horrible. I could understand every word they say. And but the thing is this: playing in the Caribbean, they love fast bowling, and they love a batsman who take on fast bowlers. And getting Viv Richards out in the first innings, and all of a sudden, right, okay, who is this guy? Got Viv Richards out, LBW, and all that business. The crowd was still vociferous. They were still loud and all that business. And the second innings, when I clean ball Jeff Boyd, when I clean ball Viv Richards, walking off the field, the crowd absolutely changed. They totally readapt me back. We said, okay, but what a lot of people don't realize, West Indies, when it comes to cricket in the West Indies and the Caribbean, cricket bonds the whole Caribbean, so to speak. But in between that, when it's come to Shield cricket, say in those days, when it comes to Jamaica playing Antigua or Barbados or playing Trinidad or whatever, it is as fierce as the West Indies playing England or any other international team when it comes to the inter-island games. And all of a sudden, these spectators keep saying, oh, Dev, you can ball quick anyway. Let me Antigua have it. You understand? So all of a sudden, I said, what? And I keep saying, bloody hell, they'll probably see something like you said. They'll remember when, even when they're playing against Barbados, Jamaica playing Barbados, and Malcolm Marshall absolutely have the Jamaican boys skipping around for their life. And all of a sudden, they just kind of narrow it back down to that level. They said, look, one thing I want, we don't want England to win. You could take all 10 wickets or all 20 wickets, we don't mind that. But we want the West Indies to win anyway. But we adapt. And all of a sudden, I said, thank God for that. And next day, you have a lot of banter. And, when you went on further on the tour, you went to Trinidad, or especially Barbados, the crowd, it's part of the comedy of the whole thing. They are feeling out there. They always try to, create a laugh amongst the guys in the spectators. And they're always trying to take the mickey, or they're always on the West Indies side. So they're going to try anything to try and give West Indies the advantage. Sure. But I recognize that very quickly. And I use that to build my confidence up. I just try to block that out of my head, because some of the things earlier on they said and all that business, they're not always totally on their side. They just want you to get out there, both of Viv Richards, and they want Viv Richards to put you in the stand as many times as possible. You understand? Okay. They love that. But so, it was very difficult indeed to cope with the crowd and so to play against such established, fantastic batsmen.
I mean, that tour, you announced yourself onto the world scene, a 10-4 in Trinidad, and was it 19 Test wickets on the tour in the series? So coming home from that tour, did you feel you were settled in the England side for some time going forward? Were you made to feel that way?
Without a shadow of a doubt, I felt, the way I performed in the Test matches that I played. I mean, Guyana was washed out, so it's probably in the 4 Test match. The return was pretty good. I contributed quite a bit where we should have won 2 Test matches. The one in Jamaica we did. Trinidad, again, we should have been 2-0 up. Never would be heard before. 2-0 up in that series, and from that, there's no way West Indies would come back and beat us. We'd have at least drawn the series, or from that, I reckon the confidence would have gone up and up. But there was so much disappointment after the rain came from nowhere and robbed us, and the slow over rate as well in Trinidad. That's the only chance the West Indies have of not losing the game, even at that stage. The slow over rate, we had plenty of time. Although the rain came and took about 3 hours out of the game, we still had enough time to knock off the amount of runs we needed. You understand? So, it was...
It was an incredible time, though, wasn't it? I mean, it's watching cricket over the last 35 years, and as you know, Sky, we were able to watch it on the first time using Sky Sports from here in the UK. It's just one of those series you can always remember, and I reckon they probably owe you some money, don't they, Sky, really?
Thanks. You better tell them that. You better tell them. We better put that out. I have to be paying for this stuff. I mean, we did a little, as you said, what made things even so popular and people still talking about the same thing is at that time, 89-90, that's the first time, 1990, that series is the first time cricket being telecast back in England,
Yes, fantastic, brilliant.
Through Sky. And, winning that first Test match in Jamaica, I mean, as you probably see, the piece we did for the series last summer against the West Indies, where there was some talking about that very series. How pivotal that was to Sky TV itself, because I mean they're saying after that series, because it was the timing was perfect and we did so well, they just could not put the dishes up enough, and all of a sudden Sky is what they are right now. But I've still got to be paying them hundreds of pounds every month for the stuff, and possibly
nothing's fair in life. Nothing's ever fair.
Somebody else is benefiting massively. Well, you see, I mean, if we had gone over there and get rolled over like in the past, probably Sky wouldn't be as successful. I mean, if you even look, if you even look now on the Indian Premier League, you just think back and say, I wonder when England won that 2020 competition, if India had lost that game or didn't feature very highly in the 2020, pop back to India, the spectators there probably would have said, "Oh, it's a rubbish game anyway. We don't like it." But India went back with the first 2020 competition, and look what happened. 2020 is the biggest game in the world now. Although I must admit, or I must say, Test cricket is my purest game. I love Test cricket, but it's one of those things. Sky is just like our, like the Indian Premier League, so to speak.
Yeah.
And when it comes to the being there at the right time, England did well. As I said, if we probably did rubbish, Sky wouldn't be as successful. But it was a fantastic series, and a lot of people remember it because it was on TV at prime time. And walking around now, almost 30 odd years on, like yourself and lots of people keep saying, "Oh, that series, I can remember that vividly," because coming back from work. So way back, it used to be they have these TV in the these companies selling TVs and whatever, electrical shops, and they normally put the crickets in the window, and people just crowding up outside instead of getting home try and watch the cricket because they couldn't get the Sky dish out enough. And it was rather popular. And one other thing as well, just to see how popular the game was. We won that game, the first Test match we won in Jamaica. And not very long after that, we had a telegram from the Prime Minister. I remember clearly it was Margaret Thatcher. Was the Prime Minister then, saying, well done. I keep saying, I didn't realize, Prime Ministers or government even take notice sometimes. Guys get out there playing space. It was such a earth-shattering and a serious achievement, you understand? And
Sure.
yeah, thanks to Sky and Viv Richards and myself and Angus Fraser and Alan Lamb and everybody else and Mickey Stewart and the whole team. But yeah, see where Sky is and these guys having fantastic.
Well, I know now. Next time I'm sat there in front of the TV in lockdown, watching a box set on Sky at my fingertips, I'm going to say to myself, "That's Dev. Dev's done that." If it wasn't for Dev, what would I be doing during lockdown? Who knows?
I'm only just one of the small contributors to Sky's success on the engineering team and everybody else who decide to take that on. But yeah, it would have been.
There's so much I could ask you about, so much I could talk to you about. But there's just a few things. I know I love talking to you about this story, and it's just that fantastic performance. But just for our sponsors and our members that are going to be watching this, can you just talk us through the 9 for 57 just for us, just maybe just a little bit on the lead up and then the day as well? Come on, Dev, it's just fantastic. It's the great performance.
We haven't got enough time. I just love this so much. I normally go through it ball by ball. And a matter of fact, you probably see this thing behind me. This picture.
I was going to ask you, is that the one? That's perfect.
I mean, you see that. That's the one that got away before I start telling the story. I mean, this is Darrell Cullingham. He sent me his hat and his shirt signed, and he's the only one I didn't get out in the in that game.
That's why he's the one who sent it.
He sent it, so I called it the one that got away.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah, a matter of fact, he did play well as well. Actually, he played so well. I took him to Derbyshire with me. I went back to Derbyshire and I said, "That guy Cullingham, you better sign him up for next season. We need him as an overseas player." So he played with us for about 3 years after that. But back to the story about South Africa. It's the first time South Africa came back into international cricket since, obviously, the apartheid days. And it was a 3-test match series. I didn't play in the first test match, which South Africa won by a huge margin at Lords. The second test match was at Leeds. It was a draw. It was a 3-test match series, so obviously 1-0 down. The call was bring Devon Malcolm back. We need a match winner, and I keep saying, but that's what the selectors generally were like in those days. 1 minute out, you're wondering why you don't, be so. The selection wasn't very consistent. They wanted to go out there and play consistently, and I got the call. So eventually, I realized I was, playing in that game. I know the decision for me to be playing in the game was very late on the morning of the toss, mine, and I got in, bowled pretty well in the first innings. Didn't take a lot of wicket. I took 1 wicket in the first innings, but I bowled, a lot better than my analysis showed. An incident happened though where John T. Rose were batting, and I bowled a shortish ball, which I normally have different ways of bowling my bounce. I seam up where he's going to go up, or cross seam, and the balls can stay a bit lower. And he misread a bouncer I bowled, and he kind of ducked, and it took him at the side of the helmet. So I ended up in hospital. I ended up in hospital overnight, and luckily he was okay anyway. But just push the story on a bit. I came into bat our second innings, and I could hear all the South African boys in the slip garden was going, okay, let him have a bouncer. He hit one of our boys. But I actually thought, okay, double bluff here, Dev. I mean, there's this unwritten rule if you think way back. You don't bowl your fella fast bowler. I bounced the first ball. So I was just saying, yep, I can know exactly what the bowler was, Farney de Villiers. I said, you know what? I know this is a double bluff. Farney just going to try and bowl me a Yorker. So I said to myself, Dev, no big back swing, keep your back down. He's going to bowl you a Yorker here. Farney de Villiers ran up. And before I moved, I heard clunk. It hit me right between the eyes, right on the three lions. I keep saying, man, that's not very good. I was rather embarrassed and shaken up, actually. And I could see had a look around the slips garden, and I could see the guys, kind of looking away, a sheepish look. And I said, guys, he shouldn't have done that. Said, look, if you really want to know what fast bowling is about, wait until you guys get out to bat. I said, you guys are history, with a little bit more, obviously, colorful language than that, actually. But I told him, I said, all you guys are history. And, I went to face a few balls, and next I got out. But if ever I wanted to show these guys that I really meant what I said, I got out and I just sprinted off the field, got changed, ready, and because all the England boys, they were saying, oh, come on, Dev, these boys can't do this. I said, don't worry, guys, it's all in the bag here. I'm gonna do these guys. But if ever I wanted again, bowling the perfect ball, that first ball I bowled in the second innings against Kirsten, if ever I wanted to pitch the ball at the right place, with the right pace, the right bounce, that was that ball. The ball just absolutely just get across Kirsten face, bounce, pace, just got his head out of the way, thumps into Stephen Rhodes' glove. The crowd went up, and I could see, because we're bowling from the pavilion end, so walking back to my mark, I just looked up, and I could see the South African boys, quite a few of the batters, run towards the door to have a look out to see what the big shot was about. And I said to myself, man, I said, boys, pad up, you're going to be here in a hurry. And that over, I got Kirsten out, caught him bowl. Next, other Kirsten, there were two brothers. One was caught in the hook, and I tell you what, I felt ever so fired up. You bowled well at times, and probably that's not the best, I bowled, but everything happened. All the catches were taken, the LBs were given, and I was at such a place. I mean, I heard people talking about, I suppose people talking about in the zone. If there is a zone, I was there that day, because, I remember clearly running into ball to these batsmen. It was absolutely silent. I could not hear a thing. I couldn't hear. It was just absolute silence. And I didn't realize every step I made, as soon as I turned to my mark, running into the batsman, the volume of the crowd was getting louder and louder. If I didn't watch it on the replay, I wouldn't realize that, because it was all I could see, the batsman at the other end, and it was total silence. And it was just
when you say there about being in the zone, I mean, it's okay being fired up, but you've got to balance that with your rhythm and control at the same time, haven't you, Dev?
You have to do that. This balance, this control aggression, or else you could just run in and, just try the ball quick and you get slapped all over the place. But everything was so much baggage, so much control, no interference. Myself, that batsman, and just where I wanted to pitch the ball, how I wanted to bowl, and the body just feel it. I was just sailing in, I mean, no pressure at all on the body. and it was just a fantastic feeling, you know. And
Sure.
I ended up as you go, you know, if it's spell I came on, my first spell I took 3 for none, I believe it was. And you know, looking back on the replay as well, we had young Darren Goff there who probably made his debut that very year in 1994 as well on all the bowlers. But even looking back at the replay and see where, you know, the wicket keeper Steve Rhodes was standing to the other bowlers, and all of a sudden when I'm bowling, the slips.
He's going back.
The slips.
See you later. We're going for a walk.
Wicket keeper. The slips on the wicket keeper was twice the distance back and catching the ball there when the others guys were bowling. They were halfway up and getting down to it and keep saying, "Oh, I must have been bowling quick then," you know, because everything, the rhythm and everything was going great. But you know, it's one of those days as where all the catches were taken.
It was one of the great one of the great international test performances, England international test performances of all time. But am I right in saying that even after you've done that, there's a game still to be won there? The batsmen have got to go out and knock off the runs as well. So you need to be on that winning team, don't you?
That's a very good point there, because you said, you know, you go as a cricketer, you play. This is what you want to do for your captain every time you get out there to play. This is what you want to do. You want it to do all the time you get out there for your spectators, because they're absolutely massive. I mentioned to you when I was running into bowl, I didn't hear the spectators at all. I heard the spectators at the end of the over. When I'm back to third leg, final leg, and the cheer, the elation and all that, absolutely fantastic. You live for that, as you can see. You live for your supporters, your spectators. But something I mentioned earlier on, the game I played in Trinidad in 1990, where I took 11 wickets in that game. Was it 11? Yeah, I took 11 wickets in that game. And I was man of the match that game as well in Trinidad, but we didn't win it. And I know how it felt. You know, I've still got my bottle trophy here in that game, my first man of the match, test man of the match award I ever received. And, you know, but when I finished taking all those wickets, walking off the field, and my captain then was Michael Appleton, he came across and he gave me a slap of shake, man. I said, "Dev, that was fantastic." He said, "You know what? Probably as long as I play cricket, I won't see our playing of the game where one person dominates as much as you did." And I said to him, "Skip, look, you wouldn't believe it, but every time I go out there to play, this is what I want. I want your life to be as easy as possible." And straight away I said to him, as you just mentioned, I said, "Skip, this won't mean a thing. You know, taking 9 wickets, it won't mean a thing, because," I said, "unless you guys get out there and knock these runs off, it will not mean a thing to me." You know, I said, "I remember Trinidad. I said, I've got a trophy at home. I bought a trophy. I won man of the match there." I said, "The only way this is really going to mean something, you guys get out there, knock these runs off. Let's win this game. You know, let's draw the series. And next, that will really, really mean something to me." The guys went out there, they knocked the runs off, and all of a sudden, it's dawned on me. I said, "Look, I've created history here, you know, and it really means something." The first time South Africa back into international cricket, we didn't lose the series, and I played a major part in this, you know, and, you know, this team will be remembered. And as I said, thanks to my teammates and the supporters and everybody else, you know, and even, you know, you mentioned this, it's part of those things, just driving in London, even now, you know, even way back straight after, you see guys there, you know, get into a black cab, and guy recognized me and he keeps saying, "Promise you." I said, "What was it?" He said, "Look, I was driving my cab, listening on the radio, but you know what? I was there." He said, "I was there." So most people at that period of time, whether they were at weddings or whatever, listening to the cricket, they somehow transport themselves. They said, "Look, I was part of it." You know, whether they were in a delivery theater with their wife or whatever, they keep running backwards and forward in between to check it up, because he said it was just one of those pivotal moments in
it goes down the same as like 81 and 2005. People just remember it, and they felt part of it, watching it however they could, the way that they kind of unfolded. But
you mentioned that 81 Ashes, both of them Ashes, Leeds, you know, Bob Willis. I thought there was never going to be a spell better than that, because I mean, he was somewhere else as well, you know, God rest his soul.
Yeah, he was in the zone as well.
Yeah, he was. You can tell I keep saying, "Wow." I was hiding behind the chair watching that man ball in my Sheffield when I was a young man watching him play back in 1981. But yeah, it's one of those things, you know, it was just unbelievable. Yeah.
What I want to touch on, we've mentioned it a little bit around selection, and what's incredible, the lead up to that story, the lead up to that 9 for 57 was let's bring Devon Malcolm back into the England team. We need to put pressure on Devon Malcolm, and he needs to have this explosive performance, and we need a match winner. And it's kind of it symbolises the selection policy at the time. Central contracts came in for England sometime after that. But if you'd have been playing for England now or in recent times under those sort of central contracts, do you think that you would have sort of been able to contribute more for England more consistently?
Yeah, yes, definitely, massively. Because I mean, probably younger people are watching this. They don't realize cricket wasn't the way it is now. Because then, there were no central contract. You were owned by your county, not by the ECB. So playing at Derbyshire, if there's 5-6 county championship game or 5-6 games had to be played leading up to a test match, you're just gonna be on the pardon of the captain or somebody to say, okay, Dave, tell you what, have a rest. You're gonna be playing a test match. They want their pound of flesh out of you. You got to play all the games, and from there, if you get selected for England, next you pack your bag and you head off to the test match venue. So it was very difficult. And as you said, the selection panel or the policies, they weren't very consistent at all, but they expect you as a player to come in after playing one test matches. Myself as a bowler, the batsman didn't do too well, and all of a sudden, okay, Dev, you've been dropped. Why? Because, well, the team, I'm thinking in my head, well, because we've been bowling for 160 and I didn't bowl them all for 150, I said, no, we're playing test cricket. You understand? So you always feel as if you're on trial or you put the burden on yourself. You understand? So it was very difficult those days. I mean, I do feel if I said had the things a lot more professional now. So what the current players play on with their central contracts, they don't even have to play for their county. If they pick up an injury or whatever, they can probably have a county game to get back into fitness to play. But you're there, to play, to represent your country. And you imagine that if I was focusing on playing for England, keeping fit, have the management that's going now, I'll tell you what, because I was pretty fit, and that was recognized. I was pretty fit, pretty strong.
How would you assess? How would you assess how England manage their fast bowlers now? Because the way I kind of see it is they have their recognised 2 or 3, your Andersons, your Broads, your Archers, but and they're recognised as the main bowlers, but they're not frightened to rest them every now and again when they feel the time is right. You look at Stuart Broad in the summer; he was rested for the first test, and look what he did for the rest of the series. Do you think that's the right approach that they're doing as an England management team now?
I mean, you gotta manage your bowlers. You gotta look on different conditions and all that business where a guy played. And there's certain players, I wasn't surprised. Stuart Broad, you've mentioned the series last summer. He was very upset because I thought he was bowling pretty well. And yes, management and physiologists and all that business, they look around and they can have a chart, they can plot your workload. But at times as a bowler, you know how fit you are, when you're bowling well, and you need a massive feedback also, from the bowler. Because if you, take for example, as you mentioned, last summer with Stewart, he felt as if, look, he was in a good nick. He felt he was, wanted to bowl, and management decided just to rest him. So you kind of get upset like that in a way. But overall, looking on the workload these guys have, and as I mentioned earlier on, when I played, we had county cricket to deal with as well. But test matches these days and one-day internationals, I know they have their different squads, different team for all that. The test matches nowadays back to back. You understand? So guys got to be managed as test players, international players playing white ball cricket or red ball cricket for England. You have to be managed. You have to be managed a lot more. You get feedback from your bowlers, but the stats will be there to show the amount of overs you bowl and what are the chances of getting injured. It's all on the chart. It can be spotted. So players, fast bowlers especially, have to be managed a lot better, you know, playing in the subcontinent and all that. Got to be rotated.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
got to be looked
absolutely.
after.
It's hard work,
Definitely,
isn't it?
it's very
But
hard work.
you played Test match cricket and one day internationals. T20 internationals came after your career. Would you fancy playing? I know you play a lot of 2020 with Lashings and other
Mm.
charity cricket days, but would you fancy playing international T20?
Oh, yeah, I mean, what a lot of people don't realize, I played, you know, because as I said, my role. You need to check my record at Derbyshire. Um, I was a strike bowler in Test
Mm.
cricket. Okay,
Yeah,
I take my wickets. But if you look at my international record, my first one-day international for England, I was man of the match. You know, we played against New Zealand,
yeah.
the Oval again, and I reckon New Zealand made 300 of their 50 overs, and my figures was probably 2 or 3 for 20 of 10. So I've got, I mean, I played. You look at my one-day averages. I strike, but I know how to I keep it tight because I don't try and get a wicket every ball. Then I said, okay, I'm gonna try and get a wicket, you know, try and get a wicket, one ball and over or something like that, rather than constantly take it. At times, you just pull back and said, okay, I'm gonna keep the batsman there. What's more important at the moment, especially bowling first, keep that run rate down. If we're in a bit of trouble, Dev, okay, your plan is changed. The captain said, look, we need wickets. That's what I got to go and do. But if you look at my one-day record, I could bowl economically as well. You know,
Excellent.
I've played several games for Derbyshire in the benches, not in the John Player League and various different things. And my record is good, not West cricket as
So
well.
you'd have
Yeah.
fancied IPL as well, would you?
And
Indian
IPL,
Premier
yeah,
League.
and yeah, towards the end of my career, I must tell you this. I mean, give me half a chance now, though, if I will still roll out the Zimmer frame to play a game of IPL. Even
Yeah.
at my age. I hope they organize
You and
some
me
kind of
both. I
senior.
don't know one end of a bat to another. So there
I
you go.
hope they'll organize some senior tournaments before I get in,
Yeah.
because I'm getting on quite a bit now. But yeah, I mean, it was different. I mean, at times, you know, I mean, I take wickets. I mean, towards the end of my career, I play a few white ball games where the 2020 just came in, and I used to swing that ball, you know, swing it quite a lot with plenty of control. So, you know, Devon Malcolm, the attacking test bowler, is not the same as Devon Malcolm, the one-day bowler. So I sure know if I was playing now, I would be a major part of the one day of the 2020, the white ball,
Just
white
like you
ball.
said, I mean, in county cricket, you played, was it nearly 20 seasons of
Yeah,
county
about
cricket?
19. Yeah, about 19 years of first class cricket.
19 years.
Hmm.
I mean, how do you keep going for that period? Because of being like you say, a multi-faceted fast bowler, economical, but a strike bowler as well. But the wear and tear on your body, how do you keep going for that long and in that sort of demand?
Yeah, you know, the only thing I can put this down to is I started late. I
Right.
started
Okay.
very late. So my bones were well developed. I was strong. And, you know, when Michael Holden, so when I first joined Derbyshire and obviously started doing a lot more bowling, so probably indoor school at Derby, we didn't have the long enough, obviously they've got a proper indoor school now for bowling. We didn't have the long run-ups. And even with technology, the trainers and stuff we used to wear indoors bowling on that hard flooring weren't much support. It was that much. And my first year at Derbyshire, practicing in the indoor school, and come the beginning of the season, absolutely killing me with shin splints. And Michael Holden took me aside and said, Dev, you know what? You don't bowl on hard surfaces, hard wooden surfaces in a county game. I believe you should just spend a bit more time, just do a little bit more fitness and leave majority of the bowling. You understand? Leave a majority of the bowling when we get outside. That will help.
Yeah.
That will help the strain and that. So I did find a bit of problem with my shins and all that when I first started, but it was mainly for the winter preparation. But later on, you know, once, you know, being at Derby for a couple of seasons. So what I did to develop my cricket, instead of staying home in the winter months, I traveled to New Zealand. So I play a bit of cricket. So you get to bowl on turf surfaces rather than banging away.
Sure,
And I came back, and so I you know, spend time to just work on my game, keep fit, bowl in the heat, bowl in different conditions, and that helped. But that was a very good advice from Michael. Said, look, don't pound yourself, because if you're pre-season or whatever you're doing at Derby, and as a
Yeah.
bowler, if you got 3 or 4 sessions to do, because once the season starts, you want to be in the first game, so you feel something and you're still going, because you want to try, you want to put in every effort in, so to keep on, so the coach keep an eye on you, to start. But as I said, just by myself, that probably wouldn't come across, or the coach wouldn't take that on board. But coming from a senior international, Michael, beside me, and said, look, this guy he loads up so well, he puts so much effort in his bowling with the short run up. It will cause him problem with his knee. It will cause him problem with his ankle and all that business. So I reckon you should cut down a little bit on the indoor bowling and leave it till we get outside in April. Although it's gonna be still freezing at Derby, but so
No, it's interesting. I mean, we spoke to Courtney Walsh, one of these interviews, asked him similar question in terms of longevity as a fast bowler, and it's exactly the same. It's sort of knowing your body, and having the right sort of preparation techniques and getting into the right routines, and to have someone like Michael Holding giving you that advice so early on, it's obviously paid dividends, and you're still charging him for lashings today as a result of it. As a result of it.
Yes. I'm still. I mean, I've got my young son, and he's 14, and he's playing for the academy. He's probably a little bit of chip off the block. Really, off the block is he bowls pretty quickly. But the only thing is, he can bowl, he can bat, and he can also field. So he probably take that off his mom. But he's he showed a little bit of interest, and I'm just trying to guide him a little bit. But he like and enjoy his cricket. So
well, you've talked a lot about your bowling, a little bit about your fielding, but you do have the claim to fame of hitting Shane Warne out the ground. So, and I do remember you once telling me that you batted regularly for a side at number 3. I'll never forget that. Fantastic story.
I mean, a lot of people, I'll tell you what, I love my batting, and it's not like now where it changed quite a bit. And a lot of people even talk about my batting, and some of these bowlers, low order bowlers, batting, they reckon they were brilliant in their days. And what I do say, because I bat number 11, you get out there, and the plan was to enjoy yourself. You want to hit a few sixes. You don't want to be wasting too much time. You want to get loose, get ready to bowl. The batsmen do their job. But nowadays it's different. You want to be be able to bat in number 11 or whatever. If there's a batter at the other end, and you can hang around for 5 or 6 or 10 overs, with a good technique to help
makes a difference
save a game.
Score,
save a game, or probably make a few runs to help us win the game. But my plan was to entertain the crowd. I want to hit a few sixes or a few fours, So it seemed at times, I wasn't such a good bat. But what I do say though, Fitzy, is this. It's okay. Playing club cricket and all that business, because a lot of club cricketers, I'm walking out to bat and they laughing, and all of a sudden they said, "Oh, I didn't realize it's good bat." But what I'm saying to you is this: I look like a batsman playing against those guys, but I promise you, if you facing Ambrose, Walsh, Marshall, or Shane Warne, McGrath, I promise you, it's not easy. Those guys make the best batters look fool, let alone me. They're gonna get me out every time. They're far too good for me. You understand? But occasionally, you probably nick one. Playing against Waka Yunis, Wazim Akram, or Donald. Oh my Lord, man, it's practically impossible. You probably survive a couple of balls. Yeah, you nick a few, but you ain't gonna be hanging around with those boys, because they're good. They make some of the best batters in the world look silly, let alone me, batting at number 11. But as you said, playing a bit of club cricket and all that business, not a problem. I love it. I can handle myself. But when it comes to international level, mate, I promise you, these guys are good. No mess about it. They can bowl. And they're gonna be.
I got one final question for you, Dev. One final question. We've been indoors virtually a lot of the time, most of the time, for a year. This next winter coming, so we've got to go through this year, but next winter coming is the Ashes Tour 21-22 Australia. Are you going? Have you got plans to go?
Well, I mean, at this stage, everything is a possibility, because I tell you,
Yeah.
when this is over, we all gonna be, running to get first of the queue to book things. You understand?
Yeah.
And you look at the Ashes, you see what the build up is at the moment. England been having a fantastic, away series wins at the moment. They did well in South Africa. In Sri Lanka here, they're doing very well. Next from Sri Lanka, they're gonna move on to India, and next year, whatever, we're looking for them to Australia. So all England can do at the moment is just keep the momentum going, keep building on things, because if you look how quickly cricket changed. I mean, the first Test match in India against Australia, and India been ball out in one of the first innings for 36 runs, and I had lots of
30, 35, 36,
35, 30, something like that, and I had a lot of texts coming through and said, okay, India is rubbish, Australia got the best bowling attack in the world. I keep saying, hang on here. One swallow doesn't make a summer here. I said India is a fantastic team. And although they haven't got the skipper in Virat Kohli and whatever, these guys are very talented. And I don't want England to get complacent, which I don't believe they will. Going to play Sri Lanka, they see how well Sri Lanka came back in this last game and could have caused a bit of problem. They're just going to go and say, okay, we want to treat India like Sri Lanka. They see what India have just done to Australia in this final Test match. These guys can play cricket. So it's not easy.
Nothing to be taken for granted.
Nothing taken for granted, and it will not be easy for England to go into India, in their backyard, where the pitch is going to be turning, the conditions going to be tough, and believe they're just going to walk in and give India a beating. And from that, just going to build up momentum. Just keep going, because nobody believe, because they're going to think, okay, we've won a couple of series, we're going to do well against India. And if we do well against India, we're going to go into Australia and beat. No doubt Australia will be licking their wounds. And the ultimate game, or the ultimate Test match, is always the Ashes series between England, obviously England and Australia. So leading up to it will be very interesting. But I'd just like to see, when it comes to press conference and the England boys talking, everything they're talking about is whatever we're doing right now is for the Ashes. Just put that aside, just tick things one after that. Don't overload yourself. Do well against India, and we see what happened on the next trip to Australia. But it should be fascinating, All these guys are pretty confident. Just keep Anderson going a bit, and all these guys Archer bowling well, and it will be a great series. So I'm looking forward to, if I've got the opportunity, when it's clear to do so, to start. Do a bit of booking to get down there, but I reckon probably it's gonna be a stampede because people want to get out.
Let's hope so. Let's hope so.
Yeah.
Well, Dev, thank you for talking to us about your fantastic career. Thank you for everything you've done for and with Lashings over the years. You've been an amazing servant for us, and we just can't wait to see you in that playing kit you're wearing right there in the summer. It'll be
but I'm looking forward.
Fingers crossed. It'll be
fingers crossed we can get back.
Fingers crossed it's going to be awesome.
And help. Yes, that's right. Help some of these clubs. Raise some good funds for their clubs, because I know they've been locked down for quite a while.
It's important.
Get back out there and get their club going again, and get in their members and people coming around and enjoying this game, and we can obviously put on some good show for them as well.
Thanks ever so much, Devon Malcolm.
Cheers. Okay.